All right. Okay. I'd like to say hello to everybody. Those who are joining in. I've been talking about the steps. If you look at, and I started back in July of 2020. So I think the first one was about the 12th. And here we are in August. It's about 6 to 7 videos out, and they're all titled The 12 Steps, a Universal Program. And I've been going over the 12 steps, the 12 steps of recovery as put down by the 12 step programs. Um, so when I left off the other day, 2 days ago, and today is August the 7th. Is it? Yeah, it is August the 7th. Uh, where I left off basically on step 9 and step 8 and step 9, and I went over character defects. Step 6, I went over step 6. Actually, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm just going to put them steps in the universe. Step 4 says we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5 says we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6 states we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7 states we humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Inside of step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9 states we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, I like to say, jumping into this, the first three steps laid the foundation of recovery or for recovery. When we look at step 1, which states we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. Inside of step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could, not would, could restore us to sanity. And then moving on from step 2, we went to step 3, and in step 3 states, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Then I have to say at this point, starting from step 1, we got honest. At step 2, we got open. We got open-minded, or we used open-mindedness. Inside of step 3, we became willing, because that became willing. And what willing means, we became willing to do the 12-step program, for lack of a better word. Or we became willing to practice the 12-step program. And I'd like to say that the 12-step program is a spiritual program, not religious. And what I mean when I say spiritual, it's motivated by spiritual principles. It's motivated by spiritual principles. And spiritual principles are also looked at as powers greater than ourselves, or powers, because there's a bunch of spiritual principles. It's love, it's humility, it's joy, it's laughter, and the list can go on and on and on and on. Peace, tranquility, serenity, uh, and it can go on. So moving on, inside of step 8 and step 9, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And like I said, we make a list of people. We put ourselves on a list with other people, and we look at the relationship. The relationship has to be inventoried between me and that person for what the relationship is and not what it's supposed to be. For example, when I put my mother on my relationship list or on the person on the list of all persons I had harmed, that's a mother and son relationship. But what was the actual relationship? What did I do? Not what she did to me, because we're not looking at what they did. We're looking at what we did. Stealing, being deceitful, lying, physical violence, mental, spiritual, and emotional misuse, distrust. If that was the relationship on my end, then that was not a quote-unquote father and son relationship. Mother and son relationship. It was a relationship based on other principles other than spiritual. And at this point, I'd like to interject. A lot of times people say lower principles. They look at like hate, lies, mistrust, and these types of principles as lower. No, principles are principles. That's all it is. There's no high principles and no low principles. What drives a principle is our intention. That's what drives the principle. That's why in some arenas or some areas, people will be often asked, state your intention or what's your intention? So moving on with that and not staying too long. So in the 8th step, I make a list of the people and I look at the relationship to what? To determine if I should go on to the 9th step. Because, for example, a drug dealer, if I beat a drug dealer out some money, I don't owe them no amends. I might owe them some money, but not amends, because what was the relationship? The relationship was based on principles that was not spiritual at all. It was based on a relationship that was not spiritual at all. Now I might need to pay them that money to get my to get my life, and for fear of my life or whatever. Now what happens is when I make amends to mom, when I make my amends to mom, the first part is saying I'm sorry, I apologize. But the next part of that amends is what? It's changing my behavior. So who's going to benefit from that? Of course, the dope man. But I'm not making that amends to the dope man. I ain't changing no behavior for the dope man. I'm changing because that's doing the right thing for the wrong reason. And doing the right thing for the wrong reason is definitely not spiritual. So moving on, I'll put myself on that list. Matter of fact, I might want to put myself at the top of the list. Because the relationship with myself that I did versus the addiction. And when I say the addiction, I mean the symptom, whether it's drugs or food or sex or gambling. How did I mistreat myself? What type of principles, individual, usually, let's just say a quote unquote normal individual, for themselves, their principle, you take showers, you don't treat yourself bad, you feed yourself good food, you wear nice clothes. You understand what I'm saying? But however, inside the symptom of the addiction, which could be the stuff that I just mentioned, very seldom would a person be taking a bath, eating some good food, treating themselves right. So therefore, I put myself on that list, and I look at the relationship that I had with myself, the real relationship. And then I apologize to myself, and then the next part of that is I change that behavior. And that behavior would be found in step 4, definitely step 5, 6, and 7. But in short, I will call them my character defects or my defects of character and my shortcomings. And at this point, I like to say, or give a definition, and I said a definition, and not the definition of character defects and shortcomings. A character defect is a defect in my character that I don't use. For example, gambling. If I was a person that I hit a bottom gambling and I stopped gambling, it's just a character defect. It's only a shortcoming when I use it again, when it becomes active. That character defect has become active. So back to step 8 and step 9, what I'm doing is when I say I'm sorry on one hand, on the next part, I start inventory my character defects and my shortcomings and see what shortcoming that it is that's active, that I can ask what? God, help me with this. And it's the God of my understanding. The doorknob, the kite, the man up in the cloud, the woman up in the cloud, or whatever I call for God. So moving on. Inside the 8th and the 9th step, what I'm actually looking at and addressing is steps 6 and 7 on how they're active or inactive in my life. If they're inactive, I'm looking at how I'm using them. In other words, if it's a step 6, I inventory that. Then I go back to step 5, and I can look at how did they come into being. My example that I used about stealing, for example, for the other day. And the other day when I used the example about stealing, what did I say in that video? That was probably August the 3rd. Well, anyway, what I said was a lot of times I was left at home as a child, and probably 5, 6, 7 years old, 8, 9 years old, and it wouldn't be no food in the house. So I would go to the corner store and steal something to eat and eat it. Stealing was a survival skill. It was not nothing necessarily that I intentionally did. I went and stole something to eat. Then one day I went up to the basketball court. I was standing at the basketball court and I ain't had no money. And so one of the bigger boys said, "Hey man, I'm gonna give you $1. Go to the store, give me a lucky cake and a Faygo pop, and you can have the change." By the time I got to the store, I said, I can go in there and steal that lucky cake and steal that pop and keep the whole $1. And guess what? That's what I did. And that's when stealing became, it went from a survival skill to what? Abuse, money-making skill, lying. Because when I got back to the basketball court, and I gave the boy his, because all he wanted was his lucky cake and pop, and the 25 cents was mine. I just gave it to him and walked on. Basically, I was lying. I didn't tell that man I stole the stuff. So anyway, moving on. Jumping into this. Once I examined my relationship with myself and see how I what? Lied to myself. I deceived myself. And then I did it to others. I owed myself an apology, and I moved on. Inside the 10th step, and I'm going to move inside the 10th step. What does the 10th step say? It says, we continue to take personal inventory, and we were wrong promptly admitted it. And that's saying, at this stage of the game, at the 10th step, from all my inventories, from step 9 all the way down, not to step 1, but guess what? To my honesty, my open-mindedness, and my willingness, and I'm checking my attitude. I'm inventorying my attitude as regularly as I take the 10th step inventory. And so what happens is I'm looking at how I'm working my program. How's my program of recovery being worked as often as I take my inventory? Am I taking it daily? Am I taking it every other day? Am I taking it moment by moment? Am I taking it once a week, once a month? But however, the 10th step is there to do the maintenance step. It's my maintenance step. And I'm inventorying every step. That's how I do it. I'll inventory every step and also the spiritual principles. And also, I'm looking for the spiritual principles and how I use them that came with the other steps, from step 1 all the way up to actually step 12. So this is what's going on with that. So now I'm at the 10th step point. I'm inventorying spiritual principles. I'm inventorying my behavior mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally on a regular basis. Why? Because I need to know, when how I'm doing, basically. It's just to let me know, how am I doing in this quote unquote new way of life? That's all that's going on there. So now, after I've established my 10th step, now comes the 11th step. And inside the 11th step, this is also an important step. Because what happens with the 11th step, I have come to, let me drink some of my tea here. I have come to in awareness. And the awareness that I've come to with the 11th step is that me of my own self, not my own free will, but me of my own self have been living in a state of what? Grace and mercy. I have been living in a state of grace and mercy. Let me say that again. I've been living in a state of grace and mercy through an entity that I call God. And let me say, for my agnostic and my atheist brothers and sisters, because you're brothers and sisters to me, not the dogmatic God, not a dogmatic God or some pie in the sky God, but an energy God. Let me say it again. An energy, a supreme energy. The energy that flows and ebbs through every living thing. The one energy, for me, is the one energy. And before I enter into this 11th step, what has happened is that I have looked at myself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and I have done some work to cleanse myself and purge myself of behaviors and attitudes. In other words, I have also cleansed feelings and emotions. I have cleansed myself of feelings and emotions that were counterproductive to a spiritual life. That's what I've done. And I consciously acknowledge this in the 10th step by monitoring my character defects and my shortcomings, and also the spiritual principles that I have picked up and applied in my life along the way in the recovery process. Understanding that in the recovery process, it's not about a symptom. It's about obsessive and compulsive behavior. It's about living a total self-centered me life. Now I'm at the gate of the 11th step where I'm getting better. And I'm learning how to shed some of that total self-centered behavior. I'm learning how to smelter away my obsessive and compulsive behavior which makes up the disease of addiction. And one thing that I acknowledge is that at this point, I'm on a call. That the highest energy is now calling me. But however, I have to get honest, and I have to get open-mindedness, and I have to get willing to make the call. Because the 11th step says this: we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, or this energy, as we understood him or understand him, praying only, check this out, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So, Sunni, what is this 11th step saying at this point? Now, I already made known that at the 10th step, what the 10th step have shown me that I've gotten better. And now in the 11th step, I'm saying, okay, what do you want me to do? I'm making a conscious decision. It's like a third step decision. What it is that you want me to do. I'm making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him in the 11th step. So I done went down to step 3, picked it up, and put it right next to step 11. So I'm at prayer and I'm saying, God, what it is that you want me to do. And I get up. And I live my life on a day-to-day basis. And at some point, it will be revealed to me. So in some areas, prayer is asking, not begging. Because I've heard some people say that prayer is begging. You begging. No, I'm asking. In other words, not only am I asking, I'm opening up myself to become one with this power. I'm opening it up. Let me rephrase that. I'm submitting my will, as in step 3, because remember, I went to step 3. I made a decision to turn my will and my life, over to the care of this energy called God, as I understood him. And then I sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact, which was established not in the 3rd step, but when I came to the program. When I worked step 1, that was, for me, that was the moment I had conscious contact. Because in step 1, I admitted that I was powerless over my life, that I was powerless over my addiction, and my life had become unmanageable. So I gave up me in step 1. In step 1, I gave me all the way up. In step 2, I became open to receive some new energy through the spiritual principles of the 12-step program. Yes, sir. Inside of step 3, I made a conscious decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. In step 4, I took that searching and fearless moral inventory. And I began to write me down. Nobody but me. In step 5, what did I do? In step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of the wrong. And the exact nature of the wrong is where it all began. And what wrong? It was the wrongs that's not only in that 4th step inventory, but in that 6th step inventory where it says we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And these defects of character is a combination of step 4 and step 5. In step 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings, and it didn't come all in one setting, but the shortcomings was my character defects that I acted out on. That's why it says these. and not those, is the ones that I acted out on. And then in the 8th step, when I looked at my relationships with me, with God, and the people or the society around me, and how I use those character defects, how I use those shortcomings to fuel my obsessive and compulsive behavior called addiction, and how I use the symptom, whether it's the food, whether it's the sex, whether it's the gambling, whether it's the chance taking, whether it's the what else we got? What did I leave out? Oh, my favorite one. My first addiction was fantasy. Yeah, the fantasy. How I use fantasy as addiction. Am I still fantasizing right now? You feel me? So anyway, moving on. You know, I had to throw that slang in there, right? And let me get a drink. So moving on. Into the 8th step. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And when I make that list, I put me on the list. I write out the relationship between myself, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and anybody else that's on that list, and what I did, what character defects was at play, what shortcomings was at play, and then I take it to the 9th step. Because I'm going to say this, everybody don't deserve an 8th step from me. Moving on. Inside the 9th step, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would cause what it says. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And here's the deal with that 9th step. We don't go looking for people talking about I'm sorry. I ain't gonna go, we don't do that. God sets the stage. The highest power set the stage for that. I'm not gonna go look for nobody I done stole all their Christmas toys and money and hit their mama or daddy over the head or broken their house and robbed their house. Talking about, hey, remember in 1957, I broke in your. You remember when you came home and your house was broken into and everything? That was me. You don't do that. You just know that that's on your inventory, and what would eventually happen, the issue will be addressed, and that's when you make the amends. When it's set up in divine ordinance with the highest power. All right, moving on. At step 11. It says, we, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, sought through prayer and meditation. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. And how am I improving? What I'm praying for and what I'm asking for. And when it's revealed to me, that's the improvement. And I might go start a church or go start a yoga or go start a political party or something like that. I'll know exactly what it is. And then it says, our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us. Praying only for his knowledge. It's like, God, what you want me to do? But here's the trick. I need the power to carry that out. And the power and that out is whatever he's revealed to me, and the power. And let's jump all the way back down to step 2. Because step 11 takes step 1, 2, and 3. But I'm gonna start at 3. And at 3, that's when we improve on that or make that decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood him. But in step 2, what is it? We come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And what has happened is in the 11th step, when what's revealed, when the power called God or the energy call or the God energy has revealed what it wants me to do, then I need to do it. Because it might be something I might really be uncomfortable with. Oh, yes. So I asked for the power. I said, God, help me to do your will. I asked that divine energy, help me to do your will. Because it might be something, see, I have to remember, I'm a people-pleasing person. And so the people that's around me can have more influence, this power called influence, over me than God. So I asked God, please, God, help me to carry that out, what it is that you want me to do. Then I move on to the 12th step. And inside the 12th step, it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message and practice these principles in all our affairs. And what am I saying? Having had a spiritual awakening. What was the spiritual awakening? The spiritual awakening was this. All the steps, the program works. Let me say it, put it like this. That was the spiritual awakening. Because when I came to the program, all I wanted to do was stop the symptom. Put the fire out on my ass. That's what I wanted to do. I wasn't thinking about all this other step stuff. I was sharing that stuff because y'all was saying it. And if I didn't say it, y'all wouldn't let me come into a meeting again. That's what was going on with that. And then at some point, I began to experience freedom. I experienced relief, compassionate, self-acceptance, love of self. I began to experience things about me that I never, especially one called acceptance. That self-acceptance piece, yeah. I began to experience my thick glasses, my false teeth, that part of my body, the parts, P-A-R-T-S, the parts of my body that led me into self-doubt. It could be my muscles. It could be my muscle. You feel me? It could be my stamina. It could be whatever it was about me. I gained some self-acceptance. And that's what came in. And that's what that part that says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. As a result of the steps. And then it said we tried to carry this message. We tried to carry this message to addicts and practice these principles in all our affairs. And remember this, an addict is simply an individual that's captured in or that's under the influence of obsessive and compulsive behavior. It's just that simple. That's all an addict is. A person that's obsessive and compulsive behavior. And what they have a symptom. And the symptom could be either one or a combination of drugs, alcohol, sex, fantasy, money, thrill-seeking. What did I leave out? Did I leave anything out? Television, radio, music, because what we have to understand is this, and this is what I understand. In the society that we live in a highly addictive society. Most people are addicted to something. I put money on. As a matter of fact, I ain't never met one person that ain't. And I'm talking about right now. R-A-T now, rat now. So inside the 12th step, it says, and practice these principles in all our affairs. And what is these principles? That's the principles that we gather all the way from the attitude of intolerance and intolerance and indifference, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, and the spiritual principles that's encompassed in each and every step, because each and every step is designed to expose the recovering person to spiritual principles. They all have their own spiritual principles that the honesty and open-mindedness and willingness will unlock in each step. Now, at this point, I want to say, oh yeah, and it says, we tried to carry the message. That means that we'll be wherever we are, job, home, street, wherever. And we could talk about 12-step recovery to people, but that don't necessarily mean that people are going to get it. That's why it says we tried to carry the message. And it say we carried the message. We can only try, because everybody's not going to receive the message of recovery. And that means people that's using and not using. Because you might have some people that you might talk about your recovery to. And they be like, yeah, all right. I'm just going to keep my purse beside me, you know. And when you come over, you getting one plate. And I ain't giving you no money to buy no lottery tickets with. Feel me? So anyway, we tried to carry the message. And understand this, and inside the AA book, on page 75 in the big book, right? It talks about living a spiritual life, that we have to live a spiritual life. And it says we have to. And then it talks about our family. It says that our family, you know, we had so many, years and decades of messing up. Sure, our family going to be skeptical of us. But then it also goes down and it talks about, that we are God's people. And that's what I believe today. I'm God's, hey, look, I'm God's person. I'm God's man. I'm that energy called God. I'm connected to that energy called God. And the steps is propelling my ascension with, check this out, with divine light. That's right. My life is evident. It's evidence, to me, not to y'all. So anyway, coming to a stop right here. Now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to take the 12 steps, and I call it a universal program. And I've laid the program out based on the way I understand it. And let me say this. I'm not going to get into any discussions about which is a better program. Is it AA or NA or FA or C? I'm saying this. The 12-step program as revealed to AA and the founders, and then other programs came up out of that, still, without the first, you didn't have the second or the third. That's all I'm going to say. But me personally, I make no distinction, and I'm not going to go into why I don't. I don't make a distinction. 12 steps is the 12 steps. It might be worded this way or worded that way, but the bottom line, the end result is the same. The clothes coming out clean, baby. So anyway, my next program, now I'm going to start talking about the 12-step program and ascension. The 12-step program and doing empathic work. The 12-step program and doing light work. The 12-step program in the quantum realm. Now I'm going to start naming my topics. But first, I had to lay out the 12 steps. And it's based on the way I understand them. It's just the way I understand them. Now I'm starting to go into the 12 steps and yoga, the 12 steps in karate, the 12 steps in dieting, because the 12-step program is a universal program. This program is universal. And this is what a person said to me a long time ago, and I thought it was so funny, but I agree with it. The 12-step program could fit any nut. And it can. So anyway, I'll be back Sunday night. Sunday night, and I'll have another topic, and it's going to be the 12-step program, and then I'll pick a topic. Yeah, I'll pick a topic. But I'm going to say this right. We sought, and I'm going to personalize it. I sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for me, and the power to carry that out. The power for me to carry that out. And this is what I'm doing. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop until the game is over with. Now, question. Will I be doing the 12 traditions? Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Now, how long have I been in recovery? Well over 34 years. Well, I ain't going to say well over 30. I'll say 34 years and 4 months. In a few days. But we only keep what we have by giving it away. You know, when I came in the program, I came in under AA. When I first worked my steps, I worked them under AA. Then my AA sponsor sent me to another 12-step program. And I stayed in that program up until this day. And I made AA meetings? Yes, I have made them. And I'll make one in a minute because I know how to qualify inside of an AA meeting. And I got respect for that fellowship. But this is what I do understand. I'm still working the same steps, maybe just a worded different. But in essence, we're talking about the same thing. The 12 steps not only have saved my life mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, but I'm going to say this. When you've been in recovery for 34 years, you done seen a lot of stuff. You done felt a lot of feelings and emotions. And understand I'm recovering at the level of feelings and emotions. Yes, sir. So I'm going to say this right. Hit my channel, and I appreciate it. Subscribe, and let's see where it goes. Because recovery is not changing. It's ascending. It's ascending. It's no more secret meetings in the basement or guest-only meetings. You know, take advantage of this. If you're in recovery, you're a winner. If you're struggling to get clean, keep struggling because you're going to get clean. You're going to get sober. If you're struggling with being sober, keep struggling. If you're struggling from that last bite, that last throw of the dice, play of the cards, that last piece of fantasy, that last fantasy, that lie you believe in, you're going to survive and you can make it. For real, though. Like my friends say, for real, though. For real, though. My name is Sunni, and I'm in recovery. Thanks for listening to my message. I'll be back Sunday night. Sunday night I'll be back, and I'm going to talk about the 12 steps. Then I'll have a subtitle, and they're going to meditate on it. I'm going to visit my mother in Detroit, maybe hit a meeting, who knows. All right, thank you.